Have you ever met a man who seems charming, spontaneous, full of life, but when life demands maturity, he disappears? He jokes about responsibilities, avoids deep conversations, and thrives on short-term pleasures. From the outside, he looks free, but inside, he's stuck. And worse, he doesn't even know it. Carl Jung had a name for this pattern. He called it the Puer Aeternus, the eternal boy. It's not just immaturity. It's a psychological refusal to become whole. Think about it. Have you ever known someone who changes jobs the moment things get too structured? Or ends a relationship as soon as it requires emotional commitment? Or constantly talks about potential, but never actually creates anything? This man-child archetype isn't lazy. In fact, he might be incredibly creative, intelligent, even magnetic. But there's one thing he cannot tolerate: limitation. To him, structure feels like a prison. Discipline, boring. Commitment, suffocating. And so he drifts, from job to job, lover to lover, idea to idea, believing that true freedom is the absence of obligation. But here's the twist. What looks like freedom is actually fear. A deep, hidden terror of growing up. Because to grow up means letting go of the fantasy that someone else will rescue you. It means taking ownership of your failures, your pain, your potential. That's not just hard, it's terrifying. And so, he escapes into the endless chase for novelty. The latest project, the next trip, a new lover, another escape. The Puer is addicted to beginnings, because beginnings are clean, untouched, full of fantasy. But reality? Reality requires endurance. It asks you to face your shadow, to accept boredom, routine, effort, and the passage of time. This is why the eternal boy often surrounds himself with people who enable him. They admire his passion, his youthfulness, his wild dreams. But eventually, those people grow tired. Because you cannot build a life with someone who is always preparing to live, but never truly living. Ask yourself, is there a part of you that fears commitment not because you don't want love, but because deep down, you fear losing your freedom? And if so, what kind of freedom is that, really, if it means constantly running from yourself? Behind every eternal boy, there is often a hidden emotional dynamic, an overprotective mother and an absent, or weak, father. Carl Jung believed that the roots of this immature psyche are not just personal, they're archetypal. Let's start with the mother. She gives warmth, safety, unconditional love. To a child, she is the universe. But if the bond becomes too strong, too exclusive, the boy may never develop a separate identity. He grows up physically, but emotionally, he stays tethered, craving approval, protection, and the comfort of being cared for. He avoids challenge, because challenge threatens the security of that maternal bubble. Risk feels like betrayal. Independence feels like abandonment. And so, he remains emotionally infantile, masking his dependence with rebellion or avoidance. And where is the father in this story? Often, he is emotionally unavailable, passive, or entirely missing. Without a strong paternal figure, there's no archetype to push the boy out of the nest. No voice saying, face your fear, conquer the mountain, build something real. The father's energy is what introduces limits, boundaries, and the harsh but necessary discipline of life. Without it, the boy becomes an emotional orphan, forever seeking freedom, yet terrified of what that freedom demands. He may rebel against his mother, but he never truly leaves her influence. Even his romantic relationships reflect this dynamic. He seeks nurturing partners who mother him, or he avoids intimacy altogether, fearing it will trap him in the same pattern. This psychological trap creates a cycle. The more he avoids responsibility, the more fragile he becomes. The more fragile he becomes, the more he avoids responsibility. And so, the boy never becomes the man. He remains stuck in potential, never risked, never realized. But this isn't about blaming parents. It's about recognizing the unseen forces shaping our adult lives. Many men carry this mother complex deep into their relationships, careers, and even their spiritual journeys. They don't need shame, they need awakening. So ask yourself, are you clinging to safety because the unknown feels like abandonment? Are you avoiding discipline because it reminds you of a father who never taught you strength with love? Freedom isn't the absence of authority, it's learning to govern yourself. What happens when the eternal boy falls in love? At first, it's magical, intense, consuming. He idealizes his partner, not just as a lover, but as a savior. She becomes the new mother figure, someone to admire him, comfort him, and, most of all, forgive him. He showers her with affection, promises her the stars, and creates a fantasy where love means never having to grow up. But over time, the fantasy fades, and reality creeps in. Because relationships demand maturity. They demand accountability, emotional regulation, compromise. And when those expectations arise, the eternal boy feels threatened. He interprets requests for communication as criticism. He sees emotional needs as burdens. And slowly, his once intense love turns into withdrawal, defensiveness, or passive aggression. Carl Jung warned of this exact pattern. He called it anima possession, when a man becomes dominated by his inner feminine ideal instead of integrating it. The woman he once adored becomes a mirror he resents. She reflects all the emotional work he hasn't done, all the growing up he's still avoiding. So what does he do? He runs. Not always physically, but emotionally. He detaches, creates distance, or seeks novelty. Sometimes he cheats, not out of lust, but because intimacy feels suffocating. Other times, he ghosts, leaving a trail of confusion and self-doubt in the hearts of those who tried to love him. And yet, he tells himself he's the victim, that he's just not ready, or that relationships are too complicated. But deep down, he knows. He's not afraid of love. He's afraid of what love demands. Growth, responsibility, vulnerability. Here's the tragic irony. The very love that could mature him is the love he pushes away. Not because he doesn't want it, but because he doesn't know how to hold it. So if you find yourself in this pattern, cycling through intense beginnings and painful endings, ask yourself, are you seeking love or escape? Are you building a life with someone, or using them as a mirror to hide from your own unfinished work? Real love isn't comfort, it's transformation. And unless the eternal boy turns inward and confronts his shadow, he will never truly experience it. So what does healing look like for the eternal boy? It doesn't begin with a woman. It doesn't begin with a new job, a new identity, or another fresh start. It begins in silence, in solitude, in the terrifying space where there's no one left to impress and no one left to blame. Carl Jung believed that true maturity requires the confrontation of the shadow, the parts of ourselves we repress, deny, or project onto others. For the eternal boy, that shadow is responsibility, commitment, vulnerability, all the traits he secretly associates with failure or entrapment. To break the cycle, he must do something radical. Take back the projections. That means no longer seeing his mother as the reason for his emotional wounds. No longer seeing women as rescuers or threats. No longer seeing the world as too harsh, too complex, too demanding for someone like him. Instead, he must learn to parent himself, to hold himself through discomfort rather than escaping it, to create structure where chaos once ruled, to listen to his emotions, not as enemies, but as messengers, to become the man he needed, not the one who waited for someone to fix him. And this is the hardest part. No one can do it for him. Not his partner, not his therapist, not his friends. They can support him, reflect him, hold space for him. But the real work is internal. It's in the decision, every day, to move 1 inch closer to sovereignty, to stop living from wounds and start living from wholeness. When he does this, something miraculous happens. The women he once attracted, those who mirrored his wounds, begin to change. The drama fades. The codependency dissolves. He no longer seeks to be mothered. He seeks to connect, to share, to build, to truly love, not as a boy needing care, but as a man who can give and receive in equal measure. This is not the end of the journey, but it is the beginning of something far greater, psychological integration. The transformation from boy to man, from seeker to creator, from ghost to presence. And if you're watching this, feeling seen, feeling cracked open, maybe this is your call. not to hate the boy within you, not to shame him, but to finally grow him up.